YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House. You know what? Forget the intro. Just so I'm clear here, I do not think Stefon Diggs gets traded. I don't think the Vikings actually trade him. I thought, why not? Let's make a trade scenarios video. We'll see what I came up with here. What would be, fair in trade value, and what teams, if they were able to trade for Diggs, could do that. So thought it'd be interesting. But again, I don't think he gets traded. The Vikings really can't afford to trade him. It would clear some cap, though, which could help the hunt for a quarterback, since that seems like it needs to something that needs to be done very soon, actually, based on this very early stage of this year and how Kirk Cousins is playing. But this is tough to come up with scenarios, too, just especially because I don't think he gets traded, but because I think if they were to trade him, they would need an insane amount, but then those other teams wouldn't do that. So I kind of just went, with fair deals here, even deals, looking at his value. And something to keep in mind, to remember that he is under contract. He will have about, a $12 to $15 million range in cap hit over the years. So these teams that I choose have to have the cap space now and in the future. If they do not, they have to trade away some cap in this. So some teams are going that route here, but most teams have the cap space. I also tried to, mainly go to teams that, won't have a super early first round pick. And if they did, that wasn't involved here. So a lot of factors go into this. You can't just go take any team if they need a receiver or not. A lot goes into this. So we'll break it down in just a second. If you want more Goat House, more content, there's a lot available on the Patreon. Junior, our defending picks champ, is making his score predictions on the Patreon. And if you're part of that tier, you also get playoff predictions updated, which were updated this week, and mock drafts updated, which were updated this week. And Junior score predictions are up there as well. Different from the YouTube score predictions, I do mine, he does his, so you can get both and kind of compare if you're trying to put money on the game, or if you're really interested in the score predictions. Just go to that link in the description, patreon.com/thegoathouse for more. And then we have a subscriber goal of 40K by the end of this year. Please help us out by subscribing. Full NFL content all year long. Power rankings, score predictions, straight up picks, recaps during season. Click the like button. Check us out on Twitter. First trade, the obvious one. What if it was a Stefon Diggs for Jalen Ramsey straight up deal, because the Jags were trying to trade Jalen Ramsey, maybe, not trying to do that now, but maybe he still wants to be traded. I think both teams don't really want to trade their star player, but both teams could use the other team's star player. And you may say, first glance, Ramsey might be a little more valuable because he may just be the best cornerback in football, and Diggs is a very good receiver, but not quite the best receiver in football. But Diggs, you got under contract. He's very young. You got him for a long time. Jalen Ramsey is going to be a free agent after this next year, so a little leverage there. And the Jags are actually winning without Jalen Ramsey right now too, but you could argue in terms of their skill set, Ramsey may be a little more valuable, but with all those factors I just explained, I think it'll be about even. And, for a team like the Vikings to get rid of Diggs, they wouldn't want to trade away a draft pick either, but would the Jags do this? If they think they can win without Ramsey and with another offensive piece, then possibly. Again, I don't think any of these happen at all. We're just looking at some scenarios here. But let's get a little fancy here. I still have the Jaguars in this next one, so we threw two players in there. We threw, maybe the Jags get a little more in this one. They lose their top corner in Jalen Ramsey, but they get another good corner in Xavier Rhodes. And then the Vikings, this is the main reason why they won't really get rid of Diggs, because they need more receivers even with Diggs. So if they get rid of him, they may need a receiver in return. And then DJ Chark, maybe similar traits, but a very poor man, Stefon Diggs. He's nowhere near the talent level, but he is young. So they get a receiver in return while getting Jalen Ramsey. But the Jags get a cornerback back. So a corner for a corner, a receiver for a receiver. Pretty interesting, I thought. Again, don't think any of these will happen, but I thought this was interesting. And, both teams clearing some space and taking some space in. And the Jaguars already have plenty, so they would definitely be able to make this work here. The next trade, Bills. We'll take a look at the Bills here. They have cap space. They have plenty of cap space, and maybe they have some pieces the Vikings could take a look at. here maybe could use. 2020 first-round pick and then 2 second-round picks, so that means a 2020 and a 2021 second-round pick. The Vikings also get Ty Nsekhe, the backup offensive lineman that the Bills signed from the Redskins, and Zay Jones, so they get a receiver in return. Nowhere near the skill set of Stefon Diggs, but they kind of just need a body at receiver. This is the tough one. It may look like a lot of picks, but it isn't 2 firsts. The Vikings, realistically, for them to actually trade Diggs, again, they may need 3 first-rounders and a player and a receiver or something, but I don't think teams would do that, so we're kind of going what's fair here. A 2020 first, which the Bills, got to be confident. They're looking pretty good, so it should be maybe a mid-first-round pick at the earliest for the Vikings. 2 second-round picks, and then that may look like a lot to maybe Bills fans. It's really not, though. You think about the Stefon Diggs value. He's very young, mid-20s, and he's under contract set, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you throw 2 players, but nothing's really guaranteed with these 2 players. Nseke's a backup right now. He could be, you compare him to Riley Reef, who he could be replacing. I think he could be the cheaper route for the future, and I think about even in skill level. And then Zay Jones kind of just a body. Nothing's guaranteed with him. So the Bills get Stefon Diggs, makes the offense that much better. But would it be worth it for the Bills to get rid of it this year first? Because, nothing's set right now. Maybe they can end up with another early pick, but I don't really think so. That's just the trade that came to mind with the Bills, and the Bills are up here because they can use a elite or a top-tier receiver, and they have the cap space, and it may not be the earliest first-round draft pick there for this year. Next one, we take a look at the Redskins here, and I threw Trent Williams in there. And you have to remember Trent Williams' value is going down because, the difference between Trent Williams and Stefon Diggs is Stefon Diggs is actually at practice now. He wants to play on Sundays. Trent Williams ain't going to play for the Redskins. Everybody knows that. And I think that's what the problem is, why the Redskins can't really trade him, because I think they want what his actual value is based on his talent, but the value, it really isn't there. So they would still have to trade a 2021 first-round pick, not a 2020, because that looks like it's going to be a top-tier pick. So in 2021 very well could be too, but Diggs could be worth it. 2021 first-round pick, Trent Williams and Paul Richardson, so the Vikings get the receiver back. Paul Richardson, nothing special, but a solid receiver. And the Redskins get a draft pick back there in 2021, a 4th-round pick. But again, Williams' value goes way down, and the Vikings would be seeking multiple first-round picks, but only get 1 here, and it's a future one they wouldn't really get this year. So I think this is an even deal, given that Trent Williams ain't going to play unless you ship to a different team there. So you could throw in maybe like a Riley Reef here actually to the Redskins, but do the Redskins want to take on more cap than just Diggs, where Reef might be not really the best left tackle at the moment, but they could use another one. But you could that could get thrown in there as well. But again, I don't think, I'm going to keep saying it, I don't think it happens. I don't think any of these happen. It's just fun to take a look at scenarios. And I think tomorrow, if it was Diggs will be traded, I like these scenarios. I'm not just going to take every team out there and come up with BS. It has to make sense to me. So this trade did make sense, and it's interesting because the Vikings could use a left tackle given the way Reef is playing, especially last week. Next trade, the Colts. Interesting one here. The Colts have the most cap space out of any team. A couple injuries. I know they do have T.Y. Hilton. He's currently hurt, but he'll be back. If you add Stefon Diggs to that group, that's scary. That's very scary. So they get Stefon Diggs. They have the cap to do it. And there's a first-round pick. Maybe they don't want to give up multiple first-round picks. They give up a first and a third-round pick. And to do that, they throw in 2 players here. Paris Campbell, who hasn't really looked solid yet, but it's only week 5, before week 5 here. And he's just a rookie this year. So the Vikings get a body back who does have some value, but nowhere near the Stefon Diggs, obviously, value. That goes without saying. And LaRaven Clark, who is a solid backup tackle. Nothing guaranteed. Really nothing guaranteed with either of those players for the Vikings, but could help them. Mainly just bodies with some upside for them at this point. So realistically, it could end up being a first and a third for Diggs if these players don't work out. So you kind of need those players to add on with it. And I think that's good. I think that makes the Colts better. They're not going to miss getting Diggs. They're not going to miss Paris Campbell, even though they just use a draft pick on him. They're not going to miss a backup in LaRaven Clark, even though I think he's a pretty solid backup. They're not going to miss those guys. Will they miss the first-round pick? Sure, but this makes their offense that much better, and a third-round pick they won't miss too much either. So I think that'll be the deal makes sense for the Colts. The Vikings get some picks, and then realistically the Vikings probably would want more, but would the Colts do it if it was more? That's what I keep looking at it. Look, the way I look at it here with all these teams. And that's why I don't think the Vikings will trade him, because they would want an insane amount too, and maybe not even that, because they need their receivers right now. And the next team is the Patriots. Stefon Diggs for a first-round pick, and N'Keal Harry, who was just a first-round pick. Again, the Vikings would probably want more, but this is a fair deal. N'Keal Harry I was very high on. He is hurt right now. I guess that hurts his value a little bit. Not too much, because he's only in his rookie year. Totally different type of receiver than Diggs. Different type. Is it a Vikings type of receiver? That's kind of the questions that need to be asked. But basically, they get 2 first-round picks here. 2019 first-round pick in N'Keal Harry, and 2020 first-round pick there for the Vikings. And then the Patriots get Stefon Diggs. The Patriots may have to make another move or two to clear the cap. They're really low on cap. But, of course, the Patriots need to be involved in this. Diggs with that current receiver unit just makes them that much better. I mean, he would be their best receiver. Him with Tom Brady, and that offense would be absolutely ridiculous, and he would be a happy man. Next one, getting a little creative here. I don't think Diggs would want to go to the Bengals, and the Bengals may not want him if he's going to be unhappy if a team's winning or losing, because the Bengals are in a losing form right now, unfortunately. But I thought this one was very interesting because the Bengals do have the cap space, and they have a guy, A.J. Green, that is currently hurt, and they could, use in this deal. So you may say A.J. Green is better than Stefon Diggs. And right now, if 100% healthy, he very well could be. But you think about it in terms of value. A.J. Green's currently hurt. He could continue to get hurt. He's also in his 30s now. Stefon Diggs is mid-20s. So Stefon Diggs has much more value, and honestly, the more I'm talking about it, maybe even more than this. 2 second-round picks. They're going to be early second-round picks this year and next year. So I guess that makes up for it, but and there's no way the Bengals would give up a first-round pick with A.J. Green, especially this year when it could be an early pick. But this is something that came to mind too, because the Vikings get their receiver back, but it's not really the healthiest receiver, and they get picks, but they really probably are chasing first-round picks, and that would not be able to be involved in this. So, and like I said early on, that the Bengals, they're not winning right now, so Diggs may not be happy there. Therefore, the Bengals may not think that is a good idea. And I thought about the Raiders. We do have one more team trade scenario, but I did think about the Raiders. But does Stefon Diggs have some of that attitude? He's not even close to Antonio Brown, but we see what he can be. Gets a little emotional on the sideline, and he could demand a trade. So I think the Raiders would be scared away from that after what happened before. But other than that, I think they would like to have him, and they could use a receiver. Maybe a similar skill set to Antonio Brown. They're missing that they thought they would have too, but I don't know if they would do it with the emotional state of Stefon Diggs. Even in the past, he gets a little crazy on the sideline. Nothing that's going to hurt his team, but I think that would scare them away. But let's get weird. Let's get weird with this last one, the Niners. And I think the Niners that's not the weird part. The team, I think they can use a top-tier receiver, a receiver that can be elite, given that he's still very young, and that can take their offense to the next level. That's not the weird part. What I have involved here, I could have went the easy route and just maybe 2 first-round picks for Stefon Diggs. I went a little crazy here. We got the 2 first-round picks, and we threw in Nick Mullins, who showed some promise last year. And really, it's weird to think about, but he could be better than Kirk Cousins right now, the way he's playing. If they did get Nick Mullins, Kirk Cousins will still be the starter, but at least they feel a little more confident. Right now, people calling for Kirk Cousins to be benched, then they remember that Sean Mannion's all their backup is they're like, okay, never mind. Let's keep trying Kirk, but we're going to draft one. But you get Nick Mullins, you feel a little more comfortable there. And then Stefon Diggs goes to the Niners. You also get Trey Waynes over there, and then Sean Mannion, who I guess we don't really know what he's about. I hate his throwing motion, but we don't really know what he's about. But Nick Mullins has more value. But they get the cornerback and Trey Waynes, which they're beat up at corner right now. Witherspoon should be back. But then, of course, Jason Verrett's hurt once again, unfortunately. Good corner, but hurt. So they get Waynes in that too. So that's an interesting one because the Vikings could be looking for, cheap options at a quarterback right now that actually could play. Because I don't think there's any chance Mannion goes in. I don't know. I think they just like him for the backup. Maybe they got him in there to pick his brain about McVay's playbook, for whether they play them at any time or to learn something. I think that's really what he's there for. I don't think there's any chance he'll play. But Nick Mullins may have a chance to play. He looked pretty good last year, I thought, and he has some upside to him. Maybe the Niners, knowing that Garoppolo could get hurt, maybe Nick Mullins is off limits. But for you to get a guy like Diggs and Trey Waynes that can help you right now at cornerback, pretty good, because they're undefeated right now. They're confident over there. They're confident they can go far. So I thought that trade made sense, even though it's a little out there. Like I said, the easy route for me could have just been 2 first-round picks for Stefon Diggs. But for this being out there, actually made sense at the same time. So that is all my trade scenarios for Stefon Diggs. I don't think he gets traded. Can't stress that enough. I had you guys vote. If you saw the post, you guys still wanted me to do this video, even though I didn't think he get traded. And it made sense. It's fun to see these scenarios and what could be possible. But everyone's going to say, where is this team? Where's that team? There's a reason they're not up here. I'm not saying these are the only teams that would call. Maybe some other team would call, but they would have to make it work, cap space wise, and for a lot of reasons. You got to look at the draft picks, where you might pick if you would have a problem. Diggs, that is, would have a problem with playing for that specific team. A lot goes into it. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe. That's going to do it for this one, though. Goodbye.